The girl in the hallway. The hallway was almost empty, except for the soft humming of the janitor as he pushed his cart slowly along the lockers. The air was still. Lockers lined both sides like silent watchers, and the light above flickered just once before going steady again. Everything seemed quiet, almost too quiet, until a door slammed. A girl burst out of the girls' bathroom, her breath sharp and quick. She couldn't have been more than 11. Her backpack hung from one shoulder, her hair was messy, and her eyes were wide with panic. Her small sneakers squeaked as she ran. She didn't look back. Her name was Lily. Just moments before, Lily had locked herself in the stall, trying not to cry too loudly. It was supposed to be her safe space, a place where she could wipe her tears and breathe. But safety had left the room the moment the principal stepped in. His voice had echoed against the tiled walls, cold and low. "So this is where you hide when you skip your speech therapy again?" he said, folding his arms. Lily hadn't spoken, not because she was rude or stubborn, but because she couldn't. Her stutter made words feel like knives stuck in her throat. They wouldn't come out the way she wanted. Sometimes she tried, but it only made the laughter louder from others. The teasing, the snickering, the pity. It was all too much. "You know what we call children like you?" The principal continued. "Failures." He walked out without waiting for a response, leaving the stall door cracked and the girl frozen inside. Now she was running. Her legs carried her through the hallway, past the classrooms, past the stares of two boys whispering by, the lockers. She didn't stop. Her breath hitched when she saw the front doors. She pushed them open and was blinded by the sun. Then she saw him. Keanu Reeves stood just outside the school gate. He was leaning against a black motorcycle, sunglasses resting on his shirt collar, a helmet in one hand. He looked peaceful, calm, like he was waiting for someone he truly cared about. He had come to visit the school to donate books and speak with students. The principal had arranged it weeks ago, hoping to use Keanu's fame to improve the school's image. But Keanu had agreed only because he cared about education, especially children who were misunderstood or overlooked. He didn't expect to see a young girl running out like the school itself was on fire. She almost ran past him. "Hey," he said, gently, his voice like a warm coat on a cold morning. "You okay?" She stopped. Her body was shaking and her small fingers gripped the edge of his jacket. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't speak. Keanu knelt down. "My name's Keanu. What's yours?" She opened her mouth, tried to say, "Lily," but all that came out was a sharp breath and a weak whisper. He waited. She looked down, ashamed. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small notebook and pen. "Sometimes writing helps," he said. She took the pen slowly, her hands trembling. Then she wrote, "My name is Lily." He smiled. "Hi, Lily. It's really nice to meet you." Then she wrote one more thing. "He called me a failure." Keanu's smile faded. "Who did?" he asked. She pointed toward the school. Inside, Principal Hadley was shaking hands with the school board. He didn't know yet that the lie he had built about kindness and respect was starting to crack. And he definitely didn't know that the man he thought would help him gain approval was now standing outside with the very student he had just broken. Keanu stood up. His eyes were calm but focused. He looked at Lily. "Would you like to walk back in with me?" She hesitated, then nodded. When they walked through the front doors, the school seemed to pause. Students peeked from classroom windows. Teachers glanced over papers and stilled. The receptionist blinked as she saw Keanu enter, holding Lily's hand like a protective older brother. The principal looked up, his smile big and fake. "Keanu, I wasn't expecting we need to talk." Keanu interrupted, his voice firm. Lily stayed behind him, still silent but stronger now. Keanu didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a scene. But his words sliced through the room, like thunder. "You humiliated her," he said. "A child who struggles every day just to speak. You don't deserve to lead her." Principal Hadley's face went red. "You've got it wrong," he began. But Keanu held up his hand. "No, I don't. She told me what you said." Teachers began gathering in the hallway. Whispers spread fast. The man who once seemed untouchable, was now being confronted by someone the whole world respected. This school is supposed to be safe, Keanu continued, for every child, every voice, even the ones who need more time to speak. A teacher spoke from the back. We've seen it too, the way he treats kids like Lily. Others nodded. The principal backed away slightly, sweat forming on his forehead. You have no idea what you're talking about. Keanu stepped closer. I know exactly what I'm talking about, because I was Lily once. I was the kid no one believed in. And someone stood up for me. Now I'm standing up for her. He turned to Lily. Do you want to leave or stay and see this through? She looked at him. Her lips trembled, then she squeezed his hand. Stay, she whispered. It was the first word he had heard from her. Keanu smiled. Then we stay. What happened next would change not only Lily's life but the entire school's future. And the truth, buried for too long, was about to come to light. The silence breaks. The office door closed behind them with a soft click, but the sound felt loud in the heavy silence that followed. Keanu Reeves and Lily stood just inside the principal's office. The walls were covered in certificates, shiny plaques, and fake smiles captured in framed photographs. But all Lily could feel was the weight of what had happened in the bathroom. And all Keanu could see was a man trying to hide something dark, under layers of polished wood and gold-trimmed degrees. Principal Hadley leaned against his desk trying to regain control. Look, he said, his voice lighter than before, almost sugary. You're a guest here, Mr. Reeves. You came to inspire students and now I came here to stand for children, Keanu said calmly. Not just inspire them, but protect them, especially the quiet ones. The principal's smile twitched. Lily stood close to Keanu, holding tightly to his jacket. Her heart pounded, but for the first time, she didn't feel like she was drowning in her silence. She felt like someone saw her, not just her stutter, not her fear, but her. You think you know what's best? Principal Hadley snapped, the mask slipping. You don't run a school, you don't deal with kids who can't keep up. Keanu stepped forward slowly. She doesn't need to keep up. She just needs someone to walk with her. There was a knock at the door. A woman entered. It was Mrs. Garza, the guidance counselor. Her eyes went to Lily first, then Keanu, then finally the principal. I heard what's happening, she said. I need to speak. Hadley's face turned pale. This is not your place. Yes, it is, she cut in. I've been silent long enough. Keanu nodded at her gently. Lily isn't the only one he's mistreated, Mrs. Garza said. I've watched him shame kids who struggle. I've seen students cry in the hallway, too afraid to speak up. And when I reported it, my emails went unanswered. Keanu looked at the principal, who now fumbled for words. This is all nonsense. Mrs. Garza turned to Lily. Sweetheart, you don't need to be afraid anymore. Then she looked at Keanu. Thank you for listening when we couldn't make them hear. Outside the office, a crowd was gathering. Students and teachers stood silently, listening. Word had traveled fast, and among them someone had pulled out their phone. Keanu stepped into the hallway and saw it. Dozens of faces staring back at him. Not with fear, not with confusion, but with hope. The school, once silent, was waking up. Amki. Know some of you are scared, Keanu said loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe you've seen things you didn't understand, or maybe you felt helpless. He looked down at Lily, then back at the students. But being quiet doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes, the bravest thing in the world is to stay kind when everything around you tells you to give up. Someone in the back began to clap. Slowly, others joined. Teachers, janitors, even students who had never spoken to Lily before. The principal stormed out of the office, red with rage. This is my school, he shouted. Not a stage for your celebrity drama. No, Keanu said, his voice calm but strong. This is their school, and you've forgotten what that means. A teacher stepped forward. We want an investigation. Me too, said another. I've kept silent for years. The principal's words failed him. He turned away and walked back into his office, slamming the door behind him. Keanu turned to Lily. "You did that," he said gently. "You were brave." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't from fear. "Thank you," she mouthed, but it wasn't over. That afternoon, Keanu sat in the library with Lily. They were surrounded by books, a notebook between them. She was drawing. Her hands still trembled sometimes, but she smiled more now. Mrs. Garza came in, holding a folder. "There's more," she said. "You were right, Keanu." And Lily, "This might be hard to hear." Keanu looked at her carefully. "What is it?" "There are files, records of students marked unfit, written by Principal Hadley himself. He made sure they didn't get help. Some were even sent to other schools without warning." Keanu's jaw tightened. Lily looked up, confused. Keanu gently took her hand. "It means you're not alone. There are others like you, and we're going to make this right for all of you." He stood up and faced Mrs. Garza. "We need to bring this to the board." "They've ignored us before," she warned. Keanu's eyes didn't waver. "Then we'll make them listen," she nodded. "I'll back you." As they prepared the documents, a teacher named Mr. Benson entered quietly. He was tall, usually serious, and known for never getting involved in drama. But today, he looked different. "I have something to add," he said. "I've been writing down everything. Emails, meetings, threats." He held up a flash drive. "I was too afraid to speak before, but seeing Lily today changed that." Keanu took it gently. "You're doing the right thing," he said. Lily stood beside him, holding her drawing. It was simple. Just a little girl with a big heart, standing beside a man on a motorcycle. At the top, in uneven but proud handwriting, it said, "Thank you for seeing me." That night, Keanu stayed late at the school. He didn't have to, but he wanted to. He walked the empty hallways, pausing at lockers, reading the scribbled notes on bulletin boards. This was more than a visit to him now. It was personal. He remembered being a kid, afraid to speak up, told to stay in line, and he remembered how one teacher had stood up for him. Now it was his turn. As he stepped outside, he saw Lily's mother waiting. She ran to him and hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes. "I don't have words," she whispered. "You gave my daughter back to me." Keanu smiled softly. "She gave herself back. I just stood beside her." But deep inside, he knew this wasn't finished. Principal Hadley still had power, and people like him didn't give it up without a fight. A storm was coming, and Keanu was ready to face it. The next morning, the sky above the city was covered in gray clouds. The school stood quiet and still, but something had shifted in its heart. The teachers whispered more openly now. Students walked taller. And somewhere in the staff room, a nervous tension filled the air like static before a thunderstorm. Reeves arrived before the bell rang. He parked his motorcycle near the front entrance and stood there for a moment, watching the students walk in. Some smiled at him shyly. Others nodded with wide eyes. A few even whispered, he's really here again, as if seeing him once had been a dream. But Keanu wasn't here for attention. He was here for truth. He walked inside, where Mrs. Garza was waiting. "The board meeting is set for noon," she said, her voice steady but her hands shaking. "But Hadley knows. He's trying to get ahead of us." Keanu nodded. "Let him try." In the library, Lily sat at a table, her fingers gently tracing the edge of a notebook. She looked up when she saw Keanu. Her eyes lit up. There was still fear in them, but also strength now. She had started drawing again, and today she had drawn something different. A picture of the school, but with light coming out of it. "That's beautiful," Keanu said as he sat beside her. She smiled and pushed the notebook closer to him. Under the picture, she had written in neat, careful letters, "This is what it could be. And it will," he replied softly. At noon, the school board members arrived. They walked in with polished shoes and forced smiles, shaking hands and pretending everything was fine. Principal Hadley greeted them with fake charm. "Thank you for coming," he said. "As you know, we've had a bit of drama recently. Celebrity visits always cause some disruption." The chairman, a quiet man with glasses named Mr. Loomis, raised an eyebrow. "We were told there are serious concerns about your conduct." Hadley's face twitched, but he quickly smiled. "Oh, just misunderstandings." Then the door opened. Keanu walked in holding a folder. Mrs. Garza followed with more files. Behind them, Lily stood silently, her mother holding her hand. Several teachers came too, including Mr. Benson, who carried a laptop and the flash drive. The room went still. "This isn't a misunderstanding," Keanu said calmly. "This is about a pattern of cruelty, one that's gone unchecked for too long." The board members looked at each other, confused but curious. Keanu handed them the folder. "You'll find letters from students, teachers, even parents. Stories of mistreatment. Some were silenced, others transferred, and a few, like Lily, were left feeling broken." The chairman opened the folder and began reading. Mrs. Garza stepped forward. "We begged for help. I sent dozens of emails." "No," one answered. "Maybe because we didn't shout loud enough, or maybe because no one wanted to see it." "We have proof," Mr. Benson added, plugging the flash drive into a laptop. "Recorded meetings, internal memos, files labeled high risk with personal notes mocking children." The principal stood frozen. "This is a setup," he snapped. "They're twisting everything." Keanu looked at him. "Is that your defense?" Hadley glared. "You're not even part of this school. What gives you the right to do this?" Keanu's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I'm part of every school where a child is made to feel small for being different." The room went quiet. Lily stepped forward. She held up a small card. Her mother had helped her write it the night before. "He called me a failure. I believed him for a long time. Not anymore." The board looked at each other. Even the hardest faces began to soften. "Why didn't anyone stop this sooner?" one of them asked. "Fear," Mrs. Garza answered. "He made us afraid, but Lily made us brave." Outside the room, students had started to gather. Someone had whispered that something big was happening, and in the hallway, they waited, silent, hopeful. An hour passed. Finally, the chairman stood. "We've heard enough," he said. "Principal Hadley, you are suspended effective immediately. We are launching a full investigation." Hadley's face crumbled. You may leave the building," Mr. Loomis said firmly. Security escorted him out. The hallway watched in stunned silence as he passed, eyes to the floor, the power he once carried now gone. When the door closed, cheers erupted in the hallway. Keanu smiled. But he wasn't smiling because of victory. He was smiling because he saw Lily standing taller than before. She didn't cover her face anymore. She didn't shrink away from eyes. She was finding her voice. Later that day, the library was filled with laughter and conversation. Mrs. Garza organized a safe speech circle where kids like Lily could express themselves however they wanted. Drawing, writing, singing, even just sitting quietly without being judged. Lily drew a butterfly. "That's how I feel now," she whispered. Keanu leaned in. "Free?" She nodded. He took a seat next to her and watched the children around the room. So many stories. So many kids who had been told they weren't enough. But now the door was open. "You made a difference," Mrs. Garza said to Keanu. Looked at Lily. "She made it first, I just followed her." A reporter showed up that evening asking questions. Keanu declined interviews. He didn't want to be the story. He wanted Lily to be. And that night, as he left the school under a sky full of stars, he whispered to himself something no one else could hear. They'll never silence her again. But somewhere nearby, someone else was listening. In a dark car parked near the school gates, a phone call was being made. "He got Hadley out," the voice said. "But we still have control of the funding committee," the voice on the other end chuckled. "Then it's not over yet." Keanu had won the battle. But the war for the school's future was just beginning. Threats and silence. For the first time in weeks, the air inside the school felt lighter. Students were smiling more, The halls didn't feel like a maze of fear anymore, and in the library where Lily now spent her lunch breaks, you could hear small giggles, pencils scratching paper, and whispers of hope. But deep beneath that surface, something darker stirred. Keanu Reeves had returned once again. He wasn't in a suit. He didn't bring cameras or security, just a backpack, a warm smile, and a notebook filled with ideas. He met with Mrs. Garza and the new acting principal, Ms. Clara Dixon. She was kind, sharp, and respected by most teachers. She had spent years trying to fix what had been broken, under Hadley. Now, with support, she finally had a chance. "You're becoming part of this school," she joked, shaking Keanu's hand. "Hope we can afford your salary." He smiled. "I'll work for cookies." But the jokes faded as Miss Dixon pulled out a letter from her desk. "This came to my office this morning," she said quietly. Keanu read it. His smile faded. It was unsigned. Printed. No handwriting. Just cold words. "Stay out of school matters, or funding will be pulled. Some of us liked how things were. Don't make us fix what's already functioning." Mrs. Garza leaned forward. "We don't know who sent it, but it came from someone on the district funding committee." Keanu looked at her, his voice low. "They're trying to scare us." "It's working on some," Ms. Dixon said sadly. "We had 2 teachers request transfers today." Keanu stood, pacing slowly. "They're punishing the school for speaking up, just like Hadley did, only now it's from behind curtains." "We need to go public," Mrs. Garza said. "Not with emotion. With facts, numbers, stories." Keanu nodded. "And we'll start with the students." That afternoon, Keanu gathered a small group in the auditorium. No pressure, no stage, no speeches. Just chairs in a circle. He called it Voice Hour. Lily sat beside him, legs tucked under her seat, her sketchbook resting in her lap. A boy named Marcus, tall and quiet with a soft stutter of his own, looked around nervously. What if they laugh? Keanu leaned forward. What if they don't? Marcus stared at him, thinking. Then he opened his notebook and read a poem. His voice shook. His hands trembled. But he read every word. When he finished, no one laughed. They clapped. Marcus smiled for the first time in a long while. Another girl shared a song. Then a younger boy, barely 7, stood up and said, "I don't talk much, but I like turtles." Everyone laughed with joy, not mockery. Keanu looked at them all. This is what school should feel like. But outside that room, Miss Dixon received another message. This one came directly from a committee email. It was formal, threatening, and worse, real. Due to recent complaints and unapproved celebrity involvement, we are reviewing the school's funding and grant status. Further media attention will result in suspension of aid. She held her head in her hands. They're going to punish the kids. The next day, Keanu was called into a local news studio. The host, a polished woman with careful smiles, asked him directly, "Why are you so involved with a single school?" Keanu looked into the camera. "Because change starts small," he said. "And when you see a child like Lily, when you hear what she's been through, you can't walk away. I couldn't." The clip went viral. Within hours, thousands of people had commented. Some shared similar stories. Others offered support, donations, even volunteer hours. Schools across the country sent letters of solidarity. But not everyone was happy. Back at the district office, a group of men in suits watched the clip in silence. One of them, a heavy man with a gold ring, slammed the table. "He's turning this into a circus." Another nodded. "Cut the funding. Now." The school received notice the next morning. Effective immediately, all special grants were frozen. The speech therapy program, the art supplies, the reading initiative for kids who struggled, all halted. Ms. Dixon broke the news with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "They're punishing us for doing the right thing." Lily sat in the library, looking around at the shelves. Some books had already been returned to storage. Her sketchbooks were taken to be reused. She didn't understand all the politics, but she knew this wasn't fair. Keanu sat beside her. "They're taking everything," she whispered. "Not everything," he said softly. "They haven't taken your voice." He stood up. "But it's time they heard it." That evening, Keanu posted a video from inside the school. He didn't speak much. Instead, he filmed the artwork made by students, the poems, the empty therapy rooms. And at the end, he asked Lily to say one word. She looked at the camera. Her lips parted. Enough. It was soft, but it was strong. Millions watched. Parents cried. Teachers from other schools sent supplies. A nonprofit reached out to donate therapy sessions. But more importantly, people began asking questions. How could a school be punished for protecting children? How could one man's kindness be treated like a threat? Keanu watched the world respond. He didn't feel proud. He felt responsible. And he knew this wasn't just about Lily anymore. This was about every school where silence was used as a weapon, and he was ready to break it. The turning tide. The morning was cold, but the steps outside, the school burned with the weight of hundreds of feet. Students, teachers, parents, even neighbors stood in front of the building, holding handmade signs, drawings, and posters that read things like, "Let her speak, bring back the heart, and this is our school." Keanu Reeves stood near the center of it all. He wore the same quiet expression he always did, steady, patient, but full of fire inside. Lily stood next to him, holding her sketchbook to her chest. Her mother was beside her, eyes scanning the crowd, unable to believe what was happening. "How many people came?" Lily whispered. "More than I expected," Keanu answered. "Less than we need." Word had spread fast. After Lily's one-word video, "Enough," a storm of support rose online. Hashtags exploded. Celebrities reposted it. Teachers shared it in classrooms. And more importantly, people had begun to ask the same question. Why are schools punished? For protecting kids? But the district office had responded in silence. No apology. No plan. No funding restored. That silence, however, had become fuel for the people. And now, the world was watching. Inside the school building, Ms. Clara Dixon prepared for what might be her final day as acting principal. She had been called to a surprise review meeting by the district committee. She had a folder full of facts, documents, letters, testimonies, everything she needed to defend the students. But her hands shook. They already made up their minds. She whispered to Mrs. Garza. "Then we speak anyway," the counselor replied. "We speak because Lily couldn't and because others still can't." Outside, Keanu was handed a megaphone. He didn't like using microphones. He preferred real voices. But today, the crowd needed a clear one. He looked around. Parents who had stayed silent now stood with arms crossed, angry. Students who had once feared detention now held signs higher than their heads. "You don't need to know everything about a child," Keanu said through the megaphone. "But you should know how to listen." The crowd murmured in agreement. Schools should not punish the quiet ones. They should protect them. He paused. And when the system fails them, it's not just our right to speak, it's our duty. Cheers. Rose Lily smiled, but her smile faded as a black car pulled up to the curb. A tall man in a gray suit stepped out. His name was Mr. Nolan Rusk, head of the funding committee. Cold eyes, polished shoes. He looked like someone who thought empathy was a weakness. He pushed through the crowd and entered the school without a word. Keanu looked at Lily. "Ready?" She nodded. They followed him in. The review meeting was held in the staff conference room. Ms. Dixon stood at the head of the table. Across from her sat 5 committee members, including Rusk. Each held pens, folders, and expressions that suggested they'd already made their decision. Keanu entered with Mrs. Garza and Lily. Silence followed. Rusk looked at Keanu with a smirk. "Mr. Reeves, this is an internal district review. You're not employed by the school." "I'm not," Keanu said, "but neither is kindness. And I believe you need some today." The room shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Dixon stepped forward. "We're not here to argue. We're here to present facts." She laid out her folder. Mrs. Garza added more evidence. Mr. Benson joined, bringing hard drives of student performance stats and complaint records, showing how scores had improved after Hadley was suspended and how behavior issues dropped since the new speech program began. "You took away funding," Mrs. Garza said, "but what we built with it was proof of how it worked." Rusk leaned back. Mr. Hadley was a strong administrator. Order matters more than feelings. Keanu's voice cut in. Order without compassion is not education. It's control. Rusk narrowed his eyes. "Do you think fame gives you the right to challenge our process?" Keanu stepped closer, voice calm. "No. I think humanity gives me that right." He turned to Lily. "Would you like to speak?" Lily looked up. She opened her sketchbook. On the page, a drawing of the school, dark with one window glowing yellow. Inside the window, a small girl sat with a pencil. Above her, she had written, "Every light matters." Then she looked at the committee. Her mouth opened, and she spoke. "You didn't hear me before," she said, voice shaking but clear. "But you will now." Everyone froze. "I'm not a problem. I'm a person, and I deserve to learn without fear." Rusk blinked. Ms. Dixon stepped forward. "We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for fairness, respect, and for a chance to build a school that doesn't just teach, but heals." One of the board members, a woman named Mrs. Ellis, wiped her eyes. "I vote to restore funding," she said. The others looked around. One by one, they nodded. Only Rusk sat still. He leaned forward. "This isn't how we do things. You can't let a child and an actor decide school policy." Keanu looked him dead in the eyes. "You're right, but we're not deciding. We're reminding you who this is all for." Mrs. Ellis stood. "Majority rules. Funding is restored immediately. Programs will resume by next week, and we're issuing an apology." Rusk slammed his folder shut and left. No one stopped him. Outside, the crowd had waited in nervous silence. When the doors opened and Keanu stepped out, Lily beside him, Mrs. Dixon holding the signed funding document, the crowd erupted. Teachers hugged students. Parents cried. Lily's mother held her close and whispered, "You did it." "We all did," Lily whispered back. Keanu stood back and watched it all. The hugs, the tears, the healing. Mrs. Garza turned to him. "You didn't just save a school. You changed how people think." He shook his head. "They changed themselves. I just stayed close long enough to remind them they could, but even as the sun dipped lower and victory bloomed in everyone's heart somewhere far away, in a quiet office downtown, Rusk picked up his phone. "We'll see how long this lasts," he muttered, and the story, though full of hope, was not yet finished. Her voice changed everything. 2 weeks had passed since the board meeting and the school had transformed. The hallways, once filled with fear, now echoed with laughter. The speech therapy room reopened and students who had been afraid to speak were slowly finding their words. Lily came early every day, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The walls now carried student artwork. Lily's butterfly sketch was framed near the library entrance with a small gold tag under it. Every light matters. But far from the school, in a cold gray office downtown, Nolan Rusk sat at his desk, staring at his screen. The headlines bothered him. Keanu Reeves sparks national movement for student voices. Child's single word inspires schools across America. He had tried to shut it down. He had pulled funding, made calls, threatened quietly. But the people hadn't. Backed down. He scrolled through an email inbox full of messages. Most angry. Others confused. A few demanding his resignation. He clenched his fists. This isn't over. Back at the school, a special assembly had been planned. Ms. Dixon and Mrs. Garza had invited families, students, and even local reporters. But no one knew what the real announcement was except Keanu. He sat backstage, Lily by his side. She was dressed in a simple blue dress, holding her new sketchbook. "You nervous?" he asked. She nodded. A little. Good, he smiled. That means it matters to you. Her hands trembled as she opened the sketchbook and turned to the final page. She had drawn the auditorium filled with students and a stage at the front. On it stood a girl, not afraid anymore. Is that you? Keanu asked. She nodded again. Yes. The curtains opened. Students cheered. Parents clapped. Ms. Dixon stepped to the microphone. Thank you all for being here. Today is not just about celebrating progress. It's about honoring bravery. She turned. Lily, would you join me? The room went still. Lily walked across the stage slowly. Her steps were small, but her back was straight. She stood before the mic. Then she opened her sketchbook and held it up. Her voice, quiet but clear, filled the room. I used to think being quiet meant I was invisible, she said. But now, I know. Even quiet voices can change things. The room was silent. A few parents wept openly. Ms. Garza had her hand over her heart. Lily continued. We all learn differently. We all speak differently. But we all deserve to be heard. Then, she looked at Keanu, sitting in the front row. Thank you, she said. Keanu stood and clapped. The entire room followed. The applause was thunderous. After the assembly, reporters asked Keanu for interviews. He gave only one short response. This isn't about me, he said. This is about every Lily in every school, everywhere. By that evening, news stations around the country were running the story. Hashtags exploded again. Schools began reviewing how they handled special needs. One district even adopted Voice Hour as an official weekly program. And behind it all was a girl who had once hidden in a bathroom stall, afraid to speak. But not everyone was happy. Rusk, desperate to restore his image, held a press conference. He claimed the movement was too emotional and based on exaggeration. But it backfired. Parents stood outside his office the next morning holding signs that read, "We stand with Lily and kindness is not weakness." His phone rang. It was the superintendent. You're done, she said simply. Resign quietly or we go public with everything. Rusk didn't even argue. He was gone by the end of the day. Months later, the school continued to grow. Keanu visited often, sometimes to speak, sometimes just to sit and read with the kids. The library now had a quiet corner named Lily's Light where children could write or draw when words felt hard. One afternoon, as Keanu prepared to leave, Lily ran up to him with a small gift wrapped in brown paper. Open it, she whispered. He tore it gently. Inside was a drawing of him sitting on a bench surrounded by children. In the corner she had written, You didn't save me. You reminded me I could save myself. Keanu didn't speak. He just pulled her into a hug. The story didn't end there. Other schools began to change. Children who felt invisible started to step forward. Parents who had once stayed quiet found their courage. Teachers rethought how they treated silence, not as laziness but as something sacred and important. And everywhere, in the back of classrooms and at the corners of playgrounds, quiet kids were finding their voices, all because one girl ran out of a bathroom in tears and into the arms of someone who chose to listen.